there are certain people in the world that are just really good at leading. They just seem to have a knack for influence, and they know how to lead well for many, many years in their career. How do they do it so good? You may say that charisma is the difference maker in some of these individuals, and yes, charisma does help a lot, but I've learned that those that are really good for a long period of time have a really powerful set of skills. And without a doubt, the greatest difference outside of spiritual matters is a higher emotional intelligence. And at some point in the last few years, you've probably heard of emotional intelligence. It's called EI or EQ for short. The business world has embraced it and has spent billions of dollars on it every year because more and more people are realizing just how impactful EQ is on leadership and also just life in general. And so today I want to share with you how this impacts leadership and a few tips that can get you started in increasing your emotional intelligence. Stay tuned. Hey there, I'm Ryan Franklin, and I would love for you to join me every week as we explore leadership topics that are going to help you get the clarity needed to move your organization forward. Just hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notified as soon as I post a new session. Before we get started, I do want to mention that I have a great new product called the Christian Leader Blueprint. It's a solid model for leadership development. And if you've been looking for something that can help you or your team members develop in leadership, look no further than the Christian Leader Blueprint. And I want to give it away as my gift to you. You can go to christianleadermadesimple.com and you can download it for free today. And without any further delay, let's get to our session. In my earlier years of ministry, I was considered by certain key people in my life to be very good at taking care of issues and conflict. Notice I said taking care of conflict, not necessarily engaging in healthy conflict resolution. If there was a problem with a ministry, I was quick to be on the doorstep of that leader to quickly resolve whatever was going on. But I would usually come with my own ideas of the resolution, and I would persuade the leader with crafty words or sometimes even dictate to them how I wanted to resolve this. And so I would often leave the conversation with a feeling of like a faulty sense of success. But the person would feel unheard and relationally empty, and this would ultimately lead to the person not feeling accepted and really having a discontent in their role in the organization. And I quickly learned that a leader's influence isn't going to last too long with that type of interaction. And thankfully, I've learned to tune in to what a person is experiencing, and I've learned to create buy-in and healthy communication and healthy conflict resolution. And I would say that EQ has absolutely made the difference in my ability to do that. I love this quote by Daniel Goleman. He said, if your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are, you're not going to get very far. I love that because I know that a leader must understand and lead themselves before they can ever think about being effective in understanding and leading others. And here's a huge reason EQ is so important with leadership. The person with the most influence in the room is the one that usually passes along their emotions to everybody else. And it literally creates the culture of that organization. So if you're the leader in the room, you're probably going to be the one to set the tempo of the work environment. And when a leader is able to self-regulate and is able to calm their emotions, that's going to always trickle down from the leader to others, which means when there's less negative moods and interaction at the top, there's probably going to be less emotional issues throughout the team as a whole. Another good reason for EQ in this day and age, organizations are always changing. You know that today. And it's been said that people with good self-regulation and people with good emotional intelligence can usually adapt to the stress of those regular changes much more quickly than others because they don't panic, they're stable, they gather information, they make more logical decisions. So leaders can actually create a positive emotional culture in their organization or their church, their ministry, just by learning to manage their emotions better. Another example of the leadership impact of EQ is when a leader practices the use of empathy with people, when a leader really tunes in to those underlying emotions of others, empathy, and they learn how to give effective and healthy feedback to others. The leader can actually have a ton more success when they do this and moving an organization forward, much more so than other leaders that don't show proper empathy. When a leader leads with empathy, there's going to be so much more trust and fulfillment in that organization. Effective leaders also have an objective view of their environment. They don't view the world through a black or white lens. They know that their ideas aren't always the best ideas. They know that they're human, that they're fallible beings, and they don't let their emotions or their interpretations of the situation sort of cloud their vision of what's most needed for an effective organization. And so this is just a few of the reasons that the best leaders are spending a lot of time and energy and money on developing EQ within themselves and within others on their teams. And so if it's this important and if it'll make such a difference in leadership, how can a person increase their emotional intelligence? Of course, there's always educating yourself more by reading books and articles, and I encourage you to do that. Daniel Goleman has some really good books and articles. There's tons of YouTube videos out there on the topic, and there's also several good assessments out there that can help you gain more internal awareness of yourself. But one of the quickest and the most effective ways to gain EQ is by hiring an executive coach. And if the coach is trained properly, then they're going to use effective and comprehensive tools and interaction to sort of develop in you those emotional intelligent skills. But you have to have the time and the financial resources to explore that option. It's quite a significant investment. But to finish this off today, I want to give you a few practical methods that aren't quite as expensive that you can do to just sort of begin this journey. And I know that self-awareness is half the battle, and you can't even begin to learn to self-regulate or tune in to what others are experiencing until you begin to become more self-aware and tune into what's going on the inside of you. So with this first one, it's simple and it doesn't cost you any money, but it's a very powerful experience if you'll do it with humility and a true desire to learn about yourself. And here's how it works. You ask one question to at least three people in various areas of your life. It could be more people if you'd like, but I'd consider family members, work relationships, and maybe just a few friends. Sit down with them and ask them this question. It's a hard question. When I'm tired or stressed, what does it feel like to interact with me? When I'm tired or stressed, what does it feel like to interact with me? And the reason I preface that question with when I'm tired or stressed is because that's when the worst of you is going to come out. If someone is going to be abrasive, that's usually when it's going to happen, when you're tired or stressed. Now, before you do that, let me give you some tips for it. Don't get defensive. and don't respond to what they're saying. Just ask them the question and ask them to be as truthful as possible, and then just listen. And the reason I say don't get defensive is because if the person is honest with you, there's no doubt that you're going to get your feelings hurt by at least one of these people. Because we all have things that we do that others around us, they just wish that they could tell us. And most of the time, they don't, because they know it's going to hurt our feelings. But we're giving them permission without judgment to tell us these extremely hard things. And if it's done right, this is really going to help you understand your emotional and your relational blind spots in general life, but also in your leadership. And so I challenge you today, ask that question to a few people with humility. When I'm tired or stressed, what does it feel like to interact with me? So this next idea is something that helps with EQ, particularly in the way that you present yourself to others. But it doesn't have to be in the presence of others as well. You can do it alone as well. Not everyone thinks about this, but it does work. And this is simply changing your facial expressions. Daniel Goleman is in one of his articles, he calls this the facial feedback hypothesis. And it says that our facial expressions literally impacts our emotions. And so intentional smiling leads to positive emotions. Why don't you just give it a try right now? Go ahead, right now. Smile. You did it, didn't you? I love it. I love it. I love it. So anyway, here's another help. And I did a whole session on this next one recently because it's so important for leadership. It's practicing empathy. Dr. John Townsend he's a phenomenal psychologist who has impacted my life in such a great way. And he calls this attunement. This is where you identify with or you attempt to tune in and experience what others are feeling. And then you show that empathy by just briefly expressing your thoughts about what you're seeing or experiencing, letting them know that you get what they're feeling. And you may just be naming the emotion that you see. And I've heard it said that neuroscience proves that when people feel heard, they're 30% more likely to solve their own problems. So what does that mean for you as a leader? It means that your job gets easier when you listen to them. And empathy is so, so powerful. And the great thing about it is, especially for someone like me who has a naturally low empathy, the great thing is that empathy can be learned. And there are even training programs available to actually teach you to express empathy and compassion more effectively. And so this part of EQ, attunement and empathy and compassion, it just creates a better and a more productive environment to accomplish some tremendous things in your life and in your organization. There's so much more to growing your emotional intelligence, and though I've introduced you to this topic over the last couple of weeks, I encourage you to dig into this subject for yourself in a much greater way. There's books and assessments and all sorts of things that can help you grow in your knowledge of EQ. It's a vital part of leadership because I believe that the number one influence killer or limiter is the inability of leaders to understand the emotional and relational needs of themselves and of others. It impacts whatever environment that they're leading in such a huge way. And it doesn't matter how smart you are or how well you can preach or teach. If you can't tune in to the emotional and relational components of your environment, there's no doubt that you'll have limited your influence in your organization. Relationships are the greatest asset that you have in life. And the primary theme of the entire Bible is relationships. In fact, Jesus put it this way: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love others as you love yourself. And if you value relationships as much as Jesus does, then I encourage you, work hard to grow and develop your emotional intelligence.